Teacher branded Maid's daughter a liar about her father. A uniformed entrance changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a typical day at the prestigious Greenwood Academy, a place where the elite families sent their children to be groomed for success. The polished marble floors reflected the bright chandeliers above, and the hum of quiet conversations filled the air. Among the well-dressed students, one girl stood out, not because of her clothes, but because of her presence. Her name was Lily, the maid's daughter. Every day, she did her best to stay in the background, to remain invisible. Her mother, Abigail, worked tirelessly as a housekeeper in the sprawling mansion of the academy's headmaster. But for Lily, the world of wealth and privilege was a distant dream. Today, as usual, she sat quietly at the back of the class, clutching her notebook, hoping that no one would notice her. The students around her, dressed in designer uniforms, paid her no mind. They didn't care about the girl who cleaned their classrooms, who served them lunch, and who lived in the shadow of their extravagant lives. But today would be different. Today, Lily would find herself caught in the middle of something that would shake her world to its core. The teacher, Mr. Turner, a man known for his strictness and sharp wit, was standing at the front of the classroom. He had always been a man who commanded respect, and his reputation as a brilliant educator preceded him. As the bell rang and the class settled in, he began to speak about the importance of truth and integrity, something he always emphasized in his lessons. Truth is essential, Mr. Turner declared, his voice firm. It is the foundation of everything we do. Without truth, we have nothing. His eyes scanned the room, landing on Lily. But sometimes, people lie. They twist the truth to suit their needs. And when that happens, we must expose it. Lily felt her stomach twist as his gaze lingered on her. She knew he was aware of her background, of her mother's position. He had always treated her differently, with an air of superiority. Today, however, things were about to take a turn. Take Lily, for example. Mr. Turner continued, his tone dripping with disdain. She claims that her father was a soldier, a hero even. But we all know the truth, don't we? She is just the daughter of a maid, with no father to speak of. Her story is nothing more than a fairy tale. A gasp swept through the classroom. The other students began to murmur, some snickering, others shaking their heads in disbelief. Lily's face flushed with shame, but she refused to speak. She had heard this before, the mocking, the dismissive comments. But today, something inside her snapped. She stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. "That's not true," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "My father was a hero, and I have the proof." The room fell silent, the other students staring at her as though she had just spoken a foreign language. Mr. Turner raised an eyebrow. "Oh, do you now?" he sneered. "I would love to see this proof." Lily's hands shook, but she reached into her bag and pulled out a worn photograph, the edges frayed with time. She held it up, her fingers tight around the edges, and showed it to the class. The photo was of a man in a military uniform, standing tall, with the unmistakable insignia of a decorated officer on his sleeve. "This is my father," Lily said, her voice gaining strength. "He served in the army, and he saved many lives. He is a hero." There was a moment of stunned silence. Mr. Turner's eyes narrowed as he looked at the photo, then back at Lily. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could utter a word, a sound echoed from the hallway outside. The door to the classroom suddenly swung open, and a tall figure stepped inside. The students turned, their whispers dying away as they looked at the man who had just entered. He was dressed in a sharp military uniform, the buttons gleaming in the light. His posture was commanding, and his presence filled the room. "Is this the class where the maid's daughter was being slandered?" The man's voice was deep, authoritative. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she recognized him. It was her father. He had come to set the record straight. The man stood in the doorway, his uniform sharp and immaculate, with the kind of presence that immediately commanded the attention of the entire classroom. The students, still recovering from the tension-filled moment, froze. Mr. Turner's confident sneer faltered as he looked at the man, and Lily felt her heart race. This was her father, the man who had been the hero in her life, and now he was standing in front of everyone, ready to clear her name. The atmosphere in the room shifted in an instant. The students, who had moments before been whispering and mocking her, now stared in stunned silence. The man's voice broke through the stillness. "I believe my daughter just told you the truth. I am her father, and I am proud of her," he said, his tone calm but firm. Mr. Turner opened his mouth to protest, but the words seemed to catch in his throat. "You're Lily's father?" Mr. Turner asked, his voice wavering. The man nodded, his eyes unwavering as he stepped further into the room. Lily's classmates exchanged uneasy glances, their disbelief palpable. Mr. Turner, still recovering from the shock, glanced at the photo Lily had shown him earlier, now fully understanding that this was no lie. Her father wasn't just a soldier. He was someone important. "I served in the military for over 20 years, her father continued, "and I earned every medal and decoration you see. I wasn't some absentee father. I've been involved in my daughter's life from day one." The room remained silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone in the class. Lily stood there, trying to hold back the tears that had been threatening to spill since her father's entrance. This was the moment she had always wished for, the moment when her father would show the world who he truly was. Mr. Turner, now visibly uncomfortable, adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. "I didn't know," he muttered, his voice no longer holding the authority it once did. I never meant to insult you, Lily," he added, the words sounding strained. But Lily wasn't ready to forgive him so easily. The sting of his earlier words still hung in the air, and she wasn't sure she could forget how he had dismissed her, belittled her, and doubted everything she had ever said. Her father turned to her, offering a reassuring smile, and she could feel the pride radiating from him. "Lily," he said, his voice soft but firm, "I know how hard it has been for you. You've never had the chance to show people who you truly are, and that's not fair. But today, I want you to know that you are not just the daughter of a maid. You are my daughter, and that's something no one can take away from you." The students, still in awe, began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. The tension in the room was palpable, but something had changed. The girl who had once been invisible, the girl who had been laughed at and ridiculed, was now standing tall, backed by the presence of someone who had nothing to prove. Mr. Turner looked at the two of them, his face flushed with embarrassment. I didn't realize," he stammered. But Lily wasn't interested in his excuses. The damage had been done. "It's not just about you realizing, Mr. Turner," she said, her voice steady and full of quiet strength. "It's about treating people with respect, no matter who they are or where they come from." With that, she turned to her father, her hero, who had just proven that sometimes the truth doesn't need to be shouted. It simply needs to be seen. The bell rang, signaling the end of the class. But as the students began to gather their things, there was no longer the same atmosphere of superiority that had filled the room before. The whispers had stopped, replaced by a quiet reverence. As Lily and her father left the classroom together, she felt something inside her shift. She was no longer just the maid's daughter. She was someone with a voice, and that voice had just been heard. As Lily and her father walked down the corridor, she couldn't help but feel a sense of weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time, she felt seen, not just as the maid's daughter, but as someone who had a voice, someone who mattered. Her father, a man who had always been a hero to her, had just proven to the world that he was not only a hero in the battlefield but a hero in her life. And that was something no one could ever take away. As they made their way to the front door of the school, Lily's father turned to her, a proud smile on his face. "You did great today, Lily," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "You stood up for yourself and for the truth. I couldn't be prouder." Lily smiled back, but there was still a part of her that felt unsure. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to forget what Mr. Turner said," she admitted, her voice soft. "But I'm glad you were here to help me prove him wrong." Her father placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to forget it, Lily," he said. "But you do have to remember that what people think of you doesn't define who you are. You are more than what they see. You are my daughter, and that's all that matters." The words hit her like a wave, washing over the doubts and fears she had carried for so long. Her father was right. She didn't have to let the opinions of others shape her. She could shape her own path. The next day at school, Lily noticed a change. The students who had once laughed at her, who had dismissed her as just the maid's daughter, now looked at her differently. Some of them even smiled at her in passing, as if acknowledging the strength she had shown. It was a quiet shift, but it was enough. And then there was Mr. Turner. He seemed to avoid making eye contact with her, his once strong presence now feeling weak and uncertain. He never mentioned the incident again, and Lily was fine with that. She didn't need an apology. What she had needed was to prove to herself that she was worthy of respect, and she had done that. As the days passed, Lily found herself walking with a little more confidence. Her back was straighter, her steps more assured. She didn't feel the need to hide anymore. She had found her voice, and it was powerful. One afternoon, as she sat in the cafeteria, eating her lunch, a few students who had once ignored her now approached her. "Hey Lily," one of them said, smiling. "That was pretty cool what you did in class the other day. You really showed us all." Lily looked up, surprised. "Thanks," she said, her voice steady. "It wasn't just about proving anyone wrong. It was about showing who I really am." The student nodded, and the group walked away, leaving Lily to reflect on the change. It wasn't just the students who had noticed the shift. The teachers, too, seemed to look at her differently. Some of them even offered small gestures of kindness, a nod of acknowledgement, a smile of respect. It was as if the entire school had collectively decided to see her for who she truly was, not who they had assumed she was. But it wasn't the external validation that mattered most to Lily. It was the internal transformation that had taken place. She was no longer the quiet girl who hid in the shadows. She was the girl who had stood up for herself and for the truth. And that was a power no one could take away from her. As she walked out of the school that afternoon, her head held high, Lily realized that her journey was just beginning. She had learned that the truth, no matter how hard it may be to tell, always had the power to set things right. And as long as she stayed true to herself, there was nothing anyone could do to break her. She was unstoppable now. As the weeks went by, Lily's life at Greenwood Academy continued to change in ways she never expected. The other students no longer whispered behind her back. Instead, there was a newfound respect that she could feel in the air. While some still treated her with the same indifference, a noticeable shift had occurred. And, most importantly, she felt like she belonged. Every day, as she walked into the school, her confidence grew a little more. She could no longer be ignored or dismissed as just the maid's daughter. Lily had proven her worth, not only to the people around her, but most importantly to herself. But not everyone had accepted the change. One afternoon, as Lily was walking toward the library, she heard a voice call out from behind her. "Lily, can I talk to you for a second?" She turned to see Mr. Turner, standing in the hallway, his posture stiff and his expression serious. For a moment, Lily froze. The teacher who had once humiliated her was now standing before her, his gaze softer, but still filled with uncertainty. "I just wanted to say," Mr. Turner began, then paused, as if searching for the right words. "I didn't handle things well with you before. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have treated you that way, and I'm sorry for doubting you." Lily looked at him, her heart pounding. She had never expected an apology, especially not from someone like Mr. Turner. But here he was, admitting his wrongs. "It's okay," Lily said quietly, though the words felt heavy in her mouth. She wasn't sure if she could forgive him entirely, but she appreciated the honesty. "I know I wasn't fair to you, but I've learned something important. You're not just the daughter of the maid. You're someone who deserves respect, just like everyone else." For a moment, the world felt still. Lily stood there, unsure of how to respond, but the words Mr. Turner had spoken had already started to settle deep inside her. She had heard them, not just with her ears, but with her heart. "Thank you," she said finally, her voice steady. "That means a lot to me." As Mr. Turner turned and walked away, Lily felt a strange sense of closure. The power of his apology, although small, had made her realize just how far she had come. She wasn't the shy, invisible girl anymore. She had found her voice, and it had been heard. The weeks passed, and life at Greenwood Academy continued on, but Lily's perspective on everything had changed. She began to speak up more in class, to contribute to discussions, and to walk with a confidence that surprised even herself. Her father's words still echoed in her mind. "You are more than what they see." And she believed it now. One day, as Lily was leaving school, she passed by a group of students who had once been the loudest in mocking her. To her surprise, they now greeted her with smiles, a sign that the power dynamics had shifted. "Hey, Lily," one of them said. "We've been meaning to apologize for how we treated you. We didn't know your story, but we see you differently now." Lily smiled and nodded, not feeling the need to say much. She didn't need their approval. She had already proven everything she needed to herself. She was no longer defined by the way others saw her, but by the way she saw herself. As she walked home that afternoon, her head held high, she realized that the hardest battles weren't the ones fought in classrooms or hallways. They were the ones fought within, the ones where you have to stand up for yourself and your truth. And with every step, Lily felt stronger, more capable of facing whatever challenges came her way. The world, once so intimidating, now felt like it was hers to conquer. She had found her place in it, not because of her last name or where she came from, but because of the strength she had within her. No one could take that away. Her journey had just begun, and Lily knew that no matter what happened, she was ready. Lily had come a long way since that day when her father walked into the classroom and silenced the room with his presence. The students who had once doubted her now respected her, and her confidence had only grown with time. Every day, she walked a little taller, spoke a little louder, and faced the world with the unwavering strength she had found within herself. Yet, despite all the changes, there was still something missing, a feeling that she hadn't fully confronted the past. As the days passed, Lily began to realize that while her classmates had changed their attitudes toward her, there was one person who still hadn't acknowledged the transformation: her mother. Abigail, Lily's mother, had always been the quiet force behind everything. She worked tirelessly, always putting Lily's needs before her own, but never taking the time to care for herself. She had never questioned the way people looked at them, simply accepting her place in the world. But Lily knew that things were different now. It wasn't just about the way others saw them anymore. It was about how they saw themselves. One evening, after a long day at school, Lily decided to talk to her mother. They sat together in the small kitchen of their modest apartment, the warm glow of the lamp casting a soft light over their faces. "Mom," Lily began, her voice quiet but steady. "Do you ever think about how much has changed? I mean, how people see us now, how I see myself now." Abigail looked up from the pot she was stirring, her tired eyes meeting her daughter's. "I don't know, Lily. I've never really thought about it," she replied. "I just do what I have to do to get by. But you've been so brave. I've always been proud of you, even if I didn't always show it." Lily felt a pang in her chest. Her mother had always been proud of her, but there was something in her words that made Lily realize just how much Abigail had sacrificed. "You've never asked for more, have you?" Lily said softly. "You've always been content with what we have, even when it wasn't enough." Abigail sighed, setting down the spoon and wiping her hands on a towel. "I didn't want you to see how hard things were. I wanted you to focus on your future, not on our struggles." Lily reached across the table, taking her mother's hand in hers. "But Mom, our future isn't just about surviving. It's about living, about being proud of who we are. And I'm proud of you." For the first time in a long while, Abigail's face softened with a smile. "You're right, Lily. Maybe it's time I start living that way too." The next day, as Lily walked to school, she noticed a subtle change in the air. The students, though they had always shown respect, now seemed to look at her with a new sense of admiration. They no longer saw her as the maid's daughter, but as someone who had earned their respect. It wasn't just about the apologies or the new attitude from her classmates. It was about the quiet confidence that radiated from Lily now, something she had earned through every struggle, every setback, and every triumph. At school, Mr. Turner, who had once humiliated her, now looked at her with a different gaze. He no longer treated her with disdain, but with quiet respect. One afternoon, as she walked into class, he nodded at her, his face softening. "Lily," he said, his voice kind, "I just want to thank you for teaching me something important. You've shown me what it means to be humble and honest. I've learned a lot from you." Lily smiled, a warmth spreading through her. "Thank you, Mr. Turner," she said, her voice steady. "I think we all have something to teach each other." As the months passed, Lily continued to grow. She excelled in her studies, but more importantly, she excelled in life. She had learned that the most important thing wasn't what others thought of her, it was how she saw herself. She was no longer the girl who hid in the shadows. She was a young woman with a bright future, and nothing or no one could take that away. One evening, as Lily and her mother sat together. Their conversation turned to the future. "Mom, I've been thinking," Lily began, her voice filled with determination. "I want to go to college. I want to make something of myself, not just for me, but for you too." Abigail's eyes filled with pride. "Lily, I know you can do anything you set your mind to. I'll support you every step of the way." With those words, Lily knew that the journey ahead would not be easy. But she was ready. She had found the strength within herself to face whatever challenges came her way. And with the love and support of her mother, nothing was impossible. Lily had come a long way since that day when she had stood before her classmates and proven herself. But as she faced the next chapter of her life, there was still something uncertain that tugged at her heart. The time had come for her to take the next step, to apply for college. It was a daunting task, one that seemed almost out of reach for someone like her, someone who had grown up with little, someone who had been overlooked by so many. But with the support of her mother, and with the confidence she had gained through her trials, Lily knew this was her moment. She sat at the small kitchen table one evening, her laptop open in front of her, as she typed out her college application essay. It wasn't easy. She struggled with the words, the right way to tell her story, the way to show them who she truly was. She had always been the quiet one, the girl who had to fight for every ounce of attention, for every bit of respect. But now, she was someone different. She wasn't just the maid's daughter. She was Lily, the girl who had proven herself time and time again. She stared at the screen for a while, unsure if she had the courage to put everything down in writing. What if they didn't believe her? What if they thought she was just another person trying to escape her circumstances? But then she remembered what her father had told her. "The truth has power, Lily, and you have a story worth telling." That was it. Her story was hers to tell, and it was powerful. She began to type, her fingers flying across the keyboard as the words flowed freely. She wrote about her struggles, about the pain of being overlooked, about the challenges she had faced growing up. But she also wrote about her triumphs, about the day her father had walked into the classroom and set everything right, about the moment she had stood up for herself, about how she had learned to find her voice and embrace who she was. She wrote about the importance of respect, not just for herself, but for everyone, no matter where they came from or what they had. When she finished, she took a deep breath and read through her essay. It was everything she had hoped it would be. It was raw, it was honest, and it was the truth. For the first time, Lily felt like she had something to offer, something valuable. The next day, she submitted her application. She had no idea what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like she was in control of her own destiny. Weeks passed, and Lily focused on her studies, her life moving forward in ways she had never imagined. Her relationship with her mother had grown stronger than ever. They laughed together more often now, shared stories about the past, and dreamed about the future. One afternoon, as Lily was studying in her room, she heard the sound of the mail slot opening. A moment later, her mother called out from downstairs, "Lily, you've got a letter." Lily's heart raced as she ran downstairs to take the envelope from her mother's hands. It was from the college she had applied to. She tore it open, her hands trembling. The letter was short, but the words were clear. "Congratulations. We are pleased to offer you a place in our incoming class. Your application stood out to us, and we are excited to welcome you to our community." Lily's breath caught in her throat. She read the letter again, unable to believe what she was seeing. This was real. She had done it. She had earned her place at one of the most prestigious colleges in the country. Her dreams were finally coming true. Her mother, who had been standing by her side, wrapped her arms around Lily in a tight hug. "I knew you could do it, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." Lily could hardly speak, tears filling her eyes. She had worked so hard for this moment, and now it was finally here. As she stood in the warmth of her mother's embrace, Lily realized that she had not only proven her worth to the world, but she had proven it to herself. She was no longer the girl who had to fight for attention, the girl who had been overlooked. She was a young woman who had earned her place in the world. And this was just the beginning. Lily stood at the threshold of a new chapter in her life, the anticipation of college just weeks away. The application had been the culmination of so much, the hours spent studying, the moments of doubt, and the quiet perseverance that had carried her through her struggles. It was all leading to this moment. But even as the excitement buzzed in the air, there were still small moments of fear that crept in when she least expected them. As much as she had proven herself to others, there was still a lingering question she couldn't ignore. Could she truly belong in a place like this? The day she received her acceptance letter, she could hardly contain her excitement, but the weight of reality had begun to settle in. Would her classmates at the prestigious university see her for who she truly was, or would she always feel like an outsider, an imposter in a world of privilege? The thought gnawed at her during the quiet moments of reflection, but as she shared the news with her mother, she realized that her journey had already proven something more important than just acceptance. It had shown her resilience, determination, and a refusal to let her past define her future. Her mother, Abigail, stood beside her, tears of pride filling her eyes. "You did it, Lily," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've always been capable of more than they ever realized. Now, you get to show the world what you're really made of." Those words from her mother, the woman who had sacrificed so much for her, anchored Lily to the truth. She had come to know, no matter where she came from, she had earned her place. As the weeks passed and the time for college drew nearer, Lily threw herself into preparations with everything she had. She didn't just want to go to college, she wanted to thrive there. She started packing, choosing her clothes carefully, and planning for her new life. But each time she put something into a box, her heart would skip a beat. She was leaving behind everything she knew, her home, her friends, and the small community that had watched her grow. And yet, she knew it was time. On the night before her departure, her mother pulled her into a tight embrace. "Remember, you're not going there to prove anything to anyone," Abigail said softly. "You've already proven everything you need to. You're going there to be yourself, to live your dreams, and to take what's yours." Lily hugged her mother back, the weight of her words sinking in. "I'll make you proud, Mom," she whispered. "I promise." The next day, as she boarded the bus that would take her to her new life, Lily felt a mix of emotions. She was nervous, excited, and more than a little scared. But there was something else too, something that hadn't been there before. It was a sense of peace, a confidence that came from knowing who she was and what she was capable of. The bus ride felt long, but as she gazed out the window, the familiar sights of her hometown slowly faded away. It was like a door had closed, but another had opened, one that led to a future she had fought for and earned. When the bus finally pulled into the university campus, Lily was struck by how vast it all seemed. The towering buildings, the bustling students, the endless possibilities. It was a world unlike anything she had ever known. But as she stepped off the bus, she realized that she wasn't just entering a new world. She was entering the next phase of her journey, and she was ready. She had already fought her battles and come out victorious. Now, it was time to start a new chapter, one where her dreams were not just possibilities, they were her reality. And with every step she took toward the future, Lily knew she was no longer the girl who had to fight for recognition. She was the young woman who had earned it. The world was hers to conquer. Lily stepped onto the university campus with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. It felt like a dream, but she quickly realized that this was no fantasy. It was real, and this was her new reality. The bustling campus, filled with students rushing from class to class, was a far cry from the quiet halls of Greenwood Academy. Here, the world felt bigger, the stakes felt higher, but Lily knew she was ready. As she walked through the campus, she thought back to the quiet nights she had spent preparing, the doubts she had overcome, and the sacrifices her mother had made for her to get here. Lily had earned this spot, and now she was determined to make the most of it. Her first few days at university were a whirlwind. She attended orientation, met new people, and navigated through unfamiliar hallways. It was overwhelming, but there was a sense of belonging she hadn't felt before. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just the girl in the back of the room. She was a part of something bigger, and it felt like the world was opening up for her. One afternoon, as she sat in the student lounge, a group of students approached her. They were from her chemistry class, and although they had never really spoken before, one of them, Sarah, a girl with long blonde hair and an easy smile, struck up a conversation. "Hey, Lily, right?" Sarah asked. "We were wondering if you wanted to join us for a study group sometime. You seem really focused in class." Lily hesitated for a moment. She wasn't used to being invited into groups like this. She had always kept to herself, worried that her background would set her apart. But something in Sarah's voice made her feel like maybe, just maybe, this was the moment when she could truly belong. Sure, Lily replied with a smile. I'd love to. The study group became a regular part of Lily's life. She found herself not just learning from the textbooks, but also from the people around her. She saw how her classmates supported each other, how they cheered one another on, and how they celebrated even the smallest victories. It was different from the competitive atmosphere at her old school. Here, everyone seemed to want each other to succeed. As the weeks passed, Lily's confidence continued to grow. She began to speak up more in class, contributing to discussions, and even leading a few study sessions. Her professors began to notice her, not just for her academic abilities, but for her quiet strength. They recognized that she wasn't just a student trying to get by. She was a student who had already fought for her place in the world and had earned the right to be there. One evening, as Lily was walking back to her dorm, she received a text message from her mother. "How's everything going, sweetheart?" the message read. Lily smiled and quickly typed a response. "It's going great, Mom. I'm making friends, and I'm doing well in my classes. I'm starting to feel like I really belong here." As she hit send, a sense of peace settled over her. She had always dreamed of a life beyond the confines of her small world. Now, that life was unfolding before her eyes. She was no longer the shy girl who had to fight for every inch of respect. She was a woman who had earned her place in the world. The journey had been long, but every step had led her here, to a future full of possibilities. As the days turned into months, Lily found herself more and more immersed in the college life she had once only dreamed of. She was no longer fighting to be seen or heard. She was living her truth, and the world was finally listening. Lily stood at the edge of the campus quad, the autumn leaves swirling around her feet as the chill in the air marked the start of another semester. She looked out at the students walking by, their faces filled with excitement and purpose, and for the first time in her life, she felt a sense of peace. Everything she had worked for, everything she had endured, had led her here, to this moment, in this place, where she no longer felt like an outsider. As she walked toward her next class, Lily reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. It hadn't been easy. There had been struggles, moments of doubt, and times when she wondered if she would ever truly belong. But with every challenge, she had grown stronger. She had proven to herself that she could overcome the obstacles that had once seemed insurmountable. She had earned her place at this prestigious university, not because of who her parents were, but because of who she was. The girl who had once been seen as the maid's daughter had become someone people respected, someone whose voice carried weight in every room. And that wasn't something anyone could take away from her. As Lily settled into the rhythm of her college life, she began to realize that the lessons she had learned weren't just about academics. They were about resilience, about finding strength in the face of adversity, and about the importance of staying true to herself. She had learned that no matter where you come from, your worth is defined by the person you become, not by the circumstances you were born into. One day, as she was sitting in the campus cafe, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. "How's everything going, sweetheart?" it read. Lily smiled, her heart swelling with pride as she typed her response. "Everything's going great, Mom. I'm doing well in my classes, I've made some great friends, and I'm really starting to feel at home here. I'm living my dream, just like we talked about." When she sent the message, Lily felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Her mother had always believed in her, even when she hadn't believed in herself. And now, she was finally living the life they had both dreamed of. But as much as things had changed, some things remained the same. Lily knew that the journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges, always be obstacles to overcome. But she was ready for whatever came next. She had found her voice, and she had learned to stand up for herself. And that was something that would stay with her for the rest of her life. As she walked across campus toward her next class, Lily looked up at the sky, the sun casting a warm glow over the buildings. She took a deep breath, knowing that she had come so far, but also knowing that the best was yet to come. She had only just begun. And as she stepped into the future, Lily knew one thing for certain. No matter what happened, she would always be enough.